Welcome to FMH InsureCast, a podcast created by Farmers Mutual Hail designed to deliver expertise and insights from trusted FMH team members and industry experts. Each new episode will dive into new products, industry updates, and innovative solutions. Let's get to today's topic.
Well, hello, everyone. Dave DeCapp here, back with you for a unique episode of FMH InsureCast. We are recording directly following our 2025 Field Collaborative meeting that was held in Wisconsin last week. Today's May 13th. And for our listeners, just want to let you know a little bit about the event. It's a critical strategic event where our field leadership from claims and sales and precision get together with leadership from underwriting, marketing, training, and others connected to the service of our agents and customers. And we talk about the strategic direction of FMH and ensure we're all in lockstep as we proceed throughout the year. The meeting keeps getting better and better, and we've got a great kind of outcome of that meeting here today. We're gonna talk to our regional claims managers. We have 7 of them, and they're spread throughout the nation. And we're going to get their unique take on what's kind of going on in their worlds as we speak. Again, we're kind of in the middle of May at this point as we record. There's obviously a lot going on in the ag world, and we're planning our next podcast and probably the one after, depending on how that goes. But we really want to focus right now, given the time of year, on what's actually going on the ground, how things are progressing, and anything maybe to watch out for, issues we may be seeing, and do a little bit of discussion across the country that way. So given that, maybe as background, the crop progress report just came out, nationwide, and just for a little level setting, wheat right now is about 54% good to excellent. It was 51% last week. Corn's 62% planted, 56% average, so we're a little ahead of schedule there across the country. Soybeans, same, we're about 10-12% ahead of schedule, or ahead of average, I should say. And then spring wheat is also ahead. Cotton looks like it's a little behind of what the average would be, but we'll get some more intel on that from the guys that we're going to talk to here shortly. One other thing to kind of level set is final plant dates. I mentioned a couple times we're in the middle of May at this point. Final plant dates are quickly approaching. They vary, of course, wildly across the country. Some have already passed in southern states, actually. So, it's very important to know those dates, obviously, for crop insurance impacts, and to make sure you and your agent or agent and customer are checking the important dates at FMH.com. We've got a crop dates tool out there, so just a little plug for that guy. So my guest today, I mentioned our RCMs, Regional Claim Managers, and they lead the field staff, the field claim supervisors, and all of our adjusters, and have kind of a unique perspective on what's going on. So I'm excited to get to them, and without further ado, let's do that. I'd first like to bring up Bruce Van Lunen and Tucker Boss. Let them introduce themselves, talk a little bit about the area that they manage, and that kind of thing. And then we'll dive into some questions. So Bruce, let's start with you. How are you today? How are things going? And tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
You bet. Thanks for putting us on here today. Yeah, some of your comments that you made, it is pretty wild. And I think my region, I've got a lot of wildness going on. And speaking of my region, my name's Bruce Van Lunen, and I live in Northwest Kansas, and I take care of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And that state of Texas will create a lot of diversity across that state of what's going on. And, there is a lot going on throughout the whole region right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And let's dive into that here in a sec. Let's get Tucker introduced. And Tucker, tell us a little bit about yourself, the area you manage, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. My name's Tucker Boss. I've been with FMH for about 14 years. My territory is the far west. That includes Nebraska and any state west of Nebraska, primarily Colorado, parts of Wyoming. We have a pretty good presence in Idaho, and some in the Pacific Northwest. So again, kind of like Bruce said, kind of wild out there right now. We've got extremes of cold, wet, very dry. So kind of all over the board.
So let's Bruce, let's go back to you just generally with how planting has gone this year. Well, and you're in a unique situation because planting is well over for the fall stuff, right? And we're into
Yeah.
planting for the spring. But can you give us kind of your high level overview of your region?
Yeah, our wheat planting went really, really well last fall. Like you said there, David, it was well past us, and that's coming on. But what is so unique about my region with the corn planting that went on, you take the Austin, Texas area to out in northwest Kansas, that down in the Austin, Texas area, we've got corn that is tasseling right now. And our final plant date in northwest Kansas is May 31st. So we've got corn that's just going in the ground up in the northern parts of my region. And, but the corn planting went very, very well. We did have some issues in southeast Kansas with little too much precipitation. Once we got the crop in good, but as it was coming out of the ground, we had a lot of precipitation at low spots. It flooded it out, terrace channels, things like that we are getting a lot of replants on right now that the guys are trying to address. And as we speak, I think hopefully we can get the tractors back in the field and get some of those low spots corrected this week and maybe get some crop planted back in there. But as far as the rest of the state of Kansas, it's kind of all over the board. Like I said, clear out to the northwest, we're just probably 30% done. A lot of dry land, non-irrigated acres that we'll be really addressing here in the next two to 3 weeks anyway to get those completed. But yeah, the cotton planting down in Texas was going very well until we did get some moisture. And the
Yeah.
Texas area that I'm talking about is over in the Blacklands from that Dallas to Austin area. And, it kind of slowed that process down, but I think we did pretty good. And then, out west Texas, out in the Lubbock area, just getting ready to get started on the cotton planting out there. Conditions right now, I can say probably the first in my 4 to 5 years of managing Texas, the planting conditions are as good as they've been. So we're hoping those producers in West Texas can get going with their cotton this year. And, it's the outlook right now, it's there. So
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I just did a little miming of knocking on wood. Let's keep them conditions going.
Right.
One follow-up quick for Bruce, and I'll throw it over to Tucker. If you had to boil it down to one or two things that you're really keeping your eye on right now? I'm sure you probably mentioned it, but what are things that you're really looking at right now?
Well, as far as the planning, I think everything is going along really well. I think the biggest concern that we are having in the state of Kansas right now is our wheat crop. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of mosaic show up in the western half of Kansas. And, we've had producers are going out there and they're finding that, it blew in, from volunteer fields around of wheat from that the producers left out in 2024 in the fall, and the volunteer crop came and that mosaic blew over into the 2025 crop. Or we were even finding some of it where it came out of ditches along the roadway that have extended out into the crop. So we have some adjusters going around and, meeting with our insureds to, give them their, appraisals to see maybe what that wheat crop might do or what its potential is. And it's kind of all over the board. We've taken out some fields. We've had guys go in and spray them to just stop the mosaic. And then there's fields that it's just a portion of it where it hasn't taken the whole field. So yeah, that one's been a very strong concern for us as of right now.
Yeah, definitely. I can see why. Tucker, general conditions out your way. I mean, what are some of the things you're looking at related to planning, related to some generalities that you're seeing kind of throughout your region?
Yeah, starting in Nebraska, I would say planning progress is well ahead of schedule. I mean, we haven't gotten measurable rain, really anything over a quarter inch for a month. So, wet weather has not been an excuse by any stretch. As far as, staying in that Nebraska area, We are starting to get some concerns on replants. We've had soybeans that have, sprouted, but now there's no moisture for them to tap into, so they're starting to die. So that's a huge concern. We've got, some chances of rain here over the next week, but nothing real promising. And on some of that stuff, it's probably going to be too late. In central Nebraska, again, planting progress is great. The wheat out there looks amazing. The best it has in quite a few years. We are starting to see some of that mosaic that Bruce is pushing up our way. We'll just blame that on Bruce, I guess. I think for the most part, people are going to leave that alone. There's been talk of people tearing some up, but I don't think we have the mosaic nearly as bad as Kansas does at this point in time. Out west in the Panhandle, kind of a different bird out there, different crops,
Yes,
different weather patterns. It's dry. We've had wheat blown out. We've started to do some wheat appraisals where guys wanted to work the ground to keep it from blowing. Same story goes with eastern Colorado. They did get some timely rains out there last week when we were up in Wisconsin. So hopefully that carries them a little bit farther. Another concern is the San Luis Valley in south central Colorado. We're going to be looking at some PP out there. They just didn't have the snowpack that they normally have. So PP is definitely going to be an area of concern out there. And then you've got Idaho. I would say our biggest concerns out there would be wheat that just failed over the winter, and then sugar beet replants. It's been cold out there, cold. So those sugar beets do not like that once they start poking out of the ground, and they get get nipped pretty easy. We're looking at some replants on those. So kind of all over the board there, but that's kind of a general summary of the area.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful because, and just by definition, your region is, all over or part over the border, right? You've got from Idaho down to Nebraska, Colorado, and areas between. So it would make sense that there'd be kind of some variance there. And it sounds like, rather than just one thing, you're keeping your eye on, multiple factors depending on the geography. So
for sure.
So super helpful. Hey, let me ask both you guys, and then I want to bring on our next guest here. What are the most important things, not necessarily that you're looking at, although I bet it'll be similar, that farmers and agents need to know right now? I mean, any advice you can give folks in your regions of the country that they should keep their eye on?
Yeah, I'll go first so Bruce doesn't steal my thunder.
There you go.
I would make sure that, as a producer, you don't go out there and do anything until speaking with your agent. It seems like every year we get a situation where, 2 weeks later we have an insured that says, "Oh, I already replanted that. I replanted that 2 weeks ago," or "I tore that wheat field up 2 weeks ago." We need to be out there prior to destruction, prior to replant. So that would be the biggest thing that I would stress, is to make sure to keep agents informed of your intentions.
Gotcha. Very helpful. Thanks. Mr. Van Lunen.
Yeah, I would echo what Tucker's saying there. I think the biggest thing is that communication between the insured, the agent, even with our adjuster is, hey, make sure before you go tearing up that crop, just to make sure the communications have all been made. And I guess one plug I would put in is we start approaching, because like down in Texas, I think here within the next 2 weeks, we'll probably start cutting some wheat down there. And I think one of the biggest things is, insureds to keep good records on their production of their crop, how they're storing it. And, if they need some bins measured, get those claims turned in. But, that's going to be coming. So, between planting and harvest, we're looking right square in the eye of a lot of things getting ready to come off in this region.
Yes, sir. All right, perfect. Well, thanks, you guys. Thanks for breaking the ice, being the first guest. Thanks for a great job, and really appreciate your time. It's super helpful information. Let's shift our focus now to kind of the central region. I'd like to bring on Brian Nebergall. Brian is the regional claims manager for that area of the country. So, Brian, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about the region that you cover, and then a little bit about conditions and how planting season has gone.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm the regional claims manager for the East Central region. I have eastern, northeast Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Our conditions have been really good. We've gotten a lot of stuff planted. We're probably 85% done planting corn in northeast Nebraska and Iowa, and we're probably 75% on the soybeans. Uh, Stuff's been coming up really good. Uh, we've had some crusting in eastern Iowa. Some of it was from the cold and wet conditions, and the ground was so mellow when it went in, and so it kind of packed into a crust, and we've got a few replant claims because of it. So, Wisconsin, we're of course a little bit behind Iowa. Of course, planting up there, it's been cold up there and a little damp, and we are always a little bit behind Iowa up in Wisconsin. But things are going in, and everything's looking pretty good.
Gotcha. Thanks, Brian. So is there any overarching kind of generalities that you're seeing in your region, or is it really significantly different? I think you kind of pointed to this already, but is it significantly different from north to south other than just the general weather conditions, or are there any things you're really looking out for?
Yeah, I think for the most part, everything really looks good. My region really looks pretty darn good. It's this crusting part will probably end here. They'll replant what they need to replant. We've got a lot of fields that are up good and look fantastic. So for the most part, everything's looking really good. We're not going to have any prevent plant. Everything looks really good. So as we look ahead, to this replant, we've had quite a few replant claims turned in. We do use some precision on our replants. If we have replant acres on precision, we use that for the acres that were replanted. So that's a good thing to have. And then also we do a lot of self-certs. If it's under 100 acres per line, we can do a self-cert. But it's very important that we get the claim turned in before you tear up that ground, and get an adjuster out there so we can look at it. And always make sure you turn it into the agent so we can get that claim out in the field and get in contact with the insured so we can take care of that insured.
Gotcha. Thanks, Brian. And I think that would be, if there was one piece of advice you'd want to kind of put out there to folks in your region, it would be that, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I think that's where we see a lot of our problems happen, is when the insured doesn't reach out to us to let us know there was a replant, and then we find out later, and by that time there's not really much we can do about it then. So yeah, it's very important. Anytime you're going to do something to that ground other than what you had planned to do, reach out to us so we can release that ground for you to do what you need to do.
Gotcha. Thank you. Is anything else kind of on your mind, or anything that you're kind of keeping an eye on before we move on to another area of the country?
I'd say we get it up and growing in my region. It's just a pretty good area. We hope we don't get hail and move forward. We got the start of a really good season. Let's hope we keep getting some moisture. We got a few dry pockets, but for the most part, we've got some moisture, and we keep getting a little moisture along the way. We're going to raise a crop here in Iowa.
Excellent. That's an excellent closing statement. I'm super happy to hear that, and living in Iowa myself. I see some of that taking place, and let's keep that good season going and take us all the way through fall. All right, thanks, Brian, for some great insight into the happenings and kind of what the situation we see in your central region. And now let's go to another very interesting part of the country, the kind of the east and southeast area of the world, and let's bring on Matt Miller and Darren Cunningham. Hey guys, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Dave. Nice to see you.
All right.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Mr. Miller. Let's start with you. Give us a little intro, if you would.
Mr. is a hard one to follow up, right?
Yeah, well, it's a respectful connotation.
There we go.
Yes.
So I'm Matt Miller. I am the Regional Claims Manager for Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.
All right. Darren?
Yeah. I'm Darren Cunningham. I'm Regional Claims Manager for Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Mississippi.
All right. Thank you, fellas. And since you're already on screen there, Darren, let's start with you. can you give us a high-level overview of kind of how planning has gone this year, what conditions you're seeing, any generalities that you see in the region?
Sure. Planning progress, I actually pulled some data, and it's pretty well on par with the 5-year average. There are some abnormalities. Peanuts are a little behind in Arkansas. It's showing 20% with their 5-year average of 44. Soybeans are actually ahead of schedule a little bit. Arkansas is showing 69% planted versus a 5-year average of 55. Missouri, 40%, where their 5-year average is 29. So we're a little ahead on soybeans. Cotton, you mentioned earlier, Missouri is actually ahead of schedule, the only one I could find. It's showing 54% versus a 5-year average of 37. Tennessee was actually right on par with the 5-year average. So again, it's kind of the same story. Where you're standing makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, just following up with you here for a sec. So, what were the conditions? I mean, I think I know the answer to some of this in some areas of your region, but the conditions that farmers had to the challenges that they had to deal with going into planning.
Yep. Pretty much my region is a tale of, with one exception. North Missouri is actually a little on the drier side.
Yeah.
Anything from central Missouri south has been extremely wet. I pulled some rainfall just in case your listeners would be interested.
Yes, definitely.
I pulled March and April rainfall for different areas. Starting in the south end, South Louisiana was 13.26 inches for those 2 months. If you move to North Louisiana, it didn't get much better at 12.87. Moving into Arkansas, South Arkansas, 12.5. When you get to North Arkansas, it jumped to 16.32. So that's a lot of rain in 2 months. And then, of course, the winter was Tennessee, 19.22 inches for those 2 months.
So reconciling those two numbers, so you got planning progress. Generally, I'm overgeneralizing, I know, but you're going relatively well or keeping up with average, and then you have all this rain that happened during that time. So it seems like farmers been able to manage it pretty well. I mean, to the extent that they could. Was that a true statement?
Yeah, it is true for the most part. Claims wise, we have quite a few more replants than we do prevent plant currently. I expect that number to probably flip flop later. It seems like for whatever reason the PP is not coming in as strong as we thought it was, and obviously if you look at the planting data, there's a lot more that got planted than we thought. So yeah, they're just making it work. From what I can tell from being around the area, it's the higher, drier dirt that they're getting planted, and pretty much anything low lying and next to a river is still fallow.
Still, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha. Mr. Miller, same question to you. Give us kind of an overview of your region.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to take one from Darren, and he mentioned the amount of rainfall that Tennessee had. We obviously had the same amount of rainfall in Kentucky. So starting with Kentucky, really on the western side where all the rain fell there in the middle to the end of April with 12 to 15 inches, depending where you're at. Surprisingly, we were able to make some progress in May, getting some corn and soybeans planted, a little bit behind. Still, the backwater areas is still wet. Obviously, a concern with prevent plant corn growing with the forecasts that we have now until the end of May. The next 2 weeks look pretty wet. But, the high ground's been planted, crops up. Going over to Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois is kind of the same as Southern Indiana and Southern Ohio. It's hit and miss. Have had a lot of pesky rain, not a lot of rain, but just enough to keep you out of the field. Think it's going to get dried up, and another rain shower comes. It's the tales of haves and haves not.
Yeah.
Some have had too much, and some have made progress. So you never want to end a conversation on a down note. So let's move up north, right? So Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
I saw a map yesterday that Northern Illinois, the subsoil moisture is actually very low. So obviously with that happening, a lot of planning progress made. I know Illinois is right on track with a 5-year average, but hearing a lot of folks done. Interstate 70 north, maybe not quite 70 further north of that, but all the way up into northern Illinois is great progress. Same with Indiana, especially on the western side. Eastern side probably a little further behind, and then northern Ohio, there is I would say 30 to 40% corn, 30 to 35% beans. Just it's been cold is really the main takeaway. Cold and damp. Again, not a lot of rain. There's areas that have had a lot, but once it dries up, I really think that we'll get some progress and get the planters rolling. And then last but not least, Michigan. Being told that 95% of the sugar beets are planted. Where our writing area is really up in the northeast corner of Michigan and then the southwest corner. Tale of two different states there again. Southwest has been just a little bit wet, but the Northeast has been dry, and they've made good progress. So,
boy, that's fantastic. Well, I'll stay away from the word fantastic, but very encouraging to hear. Right? I mean just with the challenges that you and Darren have and your teams and the agents and farmers in those areas have had. The progress being made, the resilience that's happening, that's very encouraging.
Yeah, you hear just as many people being close to done, 3/4 done, half done, to haven't turned a wheel yet. So it's hard to put a real number on where it's at. But the surprising part is we're not into the replant numbers that we normally are at this time. And the other realistic part is we're getting close to the end of the final plant date for corn, especially in Kentucky and southern Illinois, is raised some eyebrows at this point in time, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of the same question, but from you that I've asked some of the other guests, some of the other guys, is advice, important things that folks that are listening need to know, or things that you would tell them to look out for. And this is to both you guys.
Yeah, I'll jump in first, Darren. Replants, obviously, make sure you turn your claim in, talk to your agent, talk to an adjuster first. If it looks like there's going to be prevent plant, talk to the agent, get your options, get your claim turned in, and the adjusters are very knowledgeable and options that you have and what you can and can't do.
Gotcha. Yeah, Darren?
Yep, I'll echo the same thing and maybe add, don't forget your landlords. A lot of times we'll get the tenant turned in and forget the landlord, and all of a sudden it's December and they're like, oh wait, he had a claim. So
no, good advice. All right, thanks, Matt and Darren, for those insights into your regions of the country. I think some very good advice that our listeners can take and use and be mindful of. Let's switch again to another area of the country. We'll go up north to Mr. Chad Gruen. Chad, let's bring you on, and if you would, introduce yourself, talk about the area of the country that you represent for claims, and maybe a little bit about what you're seeing, kind of, as we are through planning.
Thanks, Dave. My name is Chad Gruen. I'm the Assistant Vice President, Regional Claims Manager of the Northern Region, and that covers Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Eastern Montana. And for our region this year, it's been one of the better planning seasons that we've had in quite a while. Knock on wood, we're not going to have much prevent plant. So people were able to get in, farmers were able to get in timely and get in early, and been able to plant from fence row to fence row. So it's been a great couple months for planting in the northern region.
Well, that's fantastic. And, you hear a lot about some of the things that are happening across the country, and they are, catastrophic in some areas that really need a lot of attention. But one of the things I'm really encouraged by is hearing some of the positive stories, and to hear that your whole region generally is in really good shape is, that's a great thing at this time of year.
Yes, we've had many prevent plant claims the last few years, so that's been kind of nice, but we're not out of the woods yet.
Right.
We've got, even now we've had record heat, and we've had a lot of wind. So we're starting to get a few replant claims now due to wind, especially on the sugar beets. They're pretty susceptible to wind and blowing out. So we're getting a few sugar beet claims in now, few claims due to crusting slash being in the ground a little bit too long, laying in dry dirt. But yeah, in South Dakota, we've got some winter wheat that got put in dry dirt last fall, never rained. And now we've had some winter wheat we've had some rain in South Dakota, but now they're going to kind of flip it over to dig it down and turn to corn or turn to another crop here.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good kind of summary of the things that maybe you're keeping your eyes peeled for, and your team also keeping their eyes peeled for. But is there any one thing in particular that's kind of maybe not has you up at night, but that you really kind of focused in on to say, I'm really concerned that we might be on the precipice of X or Y, or is it kind of just all those things in general?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is just the forecast. We're going to be flipping the switch to back to potential winter in some areas.
Yeah.
So next week they're talking about potentially some snow and some freezing temperatures. So hopefully that doesn't get down to southern Minnesota or southern South Dakota. Right now it's supposed to be in the upper 30s to low 40s, but you know that there'll be some low-lying areas. So just because we've had such great emergence issues, I guess that's the only thing I'm kind of worried about is looking at the forecast that potentially we've got some soybeans up. Of course, corn, that corn and wheat, those growing points aren't out of the ground yet, but yeah, certainly some of the soybeans that have come in the ground and just popped right out because we've had, just such warm temperatures the last week and a half.
Yeah, and given the year that a good part of your region had to go through last year, let's hope none of that comes to bear, and this great planting season you've seen so far just really continues, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Just one more question, Chad. So, is there any, given that kind of his background in your region, is there anything that maybe agents or farmers need to know or should be aware of from their standpoint that you'd advise them to do?
I guess just, getting the notice of loss turned in. If you have some farmers that are looking at potentially doing some replanting, get that notice of loss turned in so the adjuster can either get out there or approve the potential replant if there is one. But yeah, other than turning a notice of loss in, I think our agents, they communicate really well, via text message, via turning in the claim. So our agent force in the northern region they've been through this before. So
right.
they do an excellent job.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, any final comments? Anything else that comes to mind?
No, it's been knock on wood. Hopefully we have a good growing season now and get timely rains. So we've had plenty of rainfalls in the double digits here in Minnesota the past couple of years. So we don't want to see any of that, but just hopefully we have some timely rains and continue with the heat. So,
gotcha. All right. Well, Chad, thanks for your insight. Thanks to you for talking a little bit about what's going on in the northern region. And if we can now, let's shift gears and move out east and talk to Tony Gear about what's going on in his area of the world. Tony, thanks for being here. Really appreciate your time. And if you could you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about the region you cover, and then maybe give us some feedback on how planning and conditions are going this year?
Yeah, sounds good, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
So I'm Tony Gear. I'm the East Regional Claims Manager and pretty much cover Florida to New York. So pretty big territory. Weather is it's always a factor somewhere, So planning wise, southeast, what I call southeast would be our Georgia area, southern Georgia. It's been going pretty well. Little dry in places, but overall temperatures were good. Moisture was pretty much norm. So planning's gone well there. Pretty much the whole region was fine up until probably late April, early May. So northern Alabama are from May on, we're pretty wet. Some areas have been 6 inches of plus. If you move over into northern Georgia into South Carolina, it's kind of a trend going up the coast where we're seeing 2 to 10 inches in some of that area in Georgia. So our onions are getting impacted. Planting was going pretty well, so we'll see how this is going to slow things down. We've gotten some replants in that northern Alabama area coming in. If you move on up into North Carolina, it's been typically a little dry, but like I said, this rain is coming in the last few days, so we're seeing a couple inches in that area as well. Maryland was also dry, but pretty much on the norm for this time of year on our planting for corn and beans. Pennsylvania's been pretty good. The rain east we've gotten quite a bit, but our business isn't so concentrated over there. So where our business is in Pennsylvania, we've been pretty well. But that's generally what we're seeing. This wet pattern looks like it's going to hold for a few more days. They're talking into maybe next week a little bit. So expecting some replants, maybe, prevent plant could be a possibility as we get toward the end of May if we don't dry out a whole lot. So we'll keep an eye on that. But
So are we generally looking a little better than you anticipated a month ago, or are we looking
I would
about
say,
same as?
I would say we're looking about the same. I mean, we were a little bit dry in places, so that's kind of going away in some spots. But yeah, I'd say we were looking pretty much same.
And how about like permanent crops? Are you seeing any concerns or any issues? You obviously you mentioned you got a very, very large region, so a bunch of variety of or a big
Yes.
variety of permanent crops. But how are those looking?
I mean, everything. We've had some issues on some apples. We've had some cold weather on those that has hurt them a little bit. We're not at this point. We don't know all the damage that we're going to have, but we are anticipating that we're going to be light on that crop. Yeah, so peaches are looking good. We've had a few hailstorms here and there. Nothing significant.
Gotcha. Well, definitely good news. So given the breadth of the region that you cover, and that geography is significant, are there any things that you're really keeping an eye on over the next month or two, or are you kind of just generally looking for any trends that kind of emerge?
Yeah, I'm just more curious about how this if this wet pattern continues through the end of the month, because we started getting into our cotton final planting dates and our peanuts. So that's probably my biggest concern would focus to that area the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Gotcha. So just well, anything else you want to add, just general from the region? I got one more question for you, if I could.
No, I mean that's pretty much sums up the region pretty well.
So so it sounds like you're concerned about some washouts, maybe some replants, things like that. But is there one thing that you'd like the listeners kind of to take away as advice that you'd advise them to proceed if they think they have a loss or if they have maybe some concern?
Yep, definitely. I would say the biggest thing is get those replants. If we're going to have replants, farmers are going to be out there doing it. Get those turned in right away. Give the adjusters a chance to make the conversation with them and make sure everybody's on the same page. That would be my biggest takeaway going into what we think we'll have some issues on.
Gotcha. Well, all right. Well, hey, Tony, thanks for that overview and kind of your thoughts and comments and insight on what we're seeing out east. Really, really appreciate your time.
Yep, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Tony. All right. I'd like to now bring out Zach Alsop to get a little bit to kind of close the loop here and get a little nationwide perspective on what we all just heard. So, Zach, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you being here. If you could intro yourself, talk about your area of responsibility, title, that type of thing for the listeners.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having us on. My name is Zach Alsop. I'm the Vice President of Field Claims. So my responsibilities are basically nationwide. So the 7 gentlemen that you heard from earlier, that is my core team, my direct reports. Great team to work with, and obviously we cover all claims things from coast to coast, border to border. So
awesome, very cool. So those interviews you speak of, great conversations. Really happy to hear. Heard a lot of good, maybe even more good than anticipated, but also heard some concern. What are you? I asked, I think everybody this, kind of what they're keeping an eye on in their region. But from a national perspective, you've got a broader perspective. So what are you keeping an eye on these days?
I think, as you listen to all seven of them talk, every year you're going to have hot spots. That's just the nature of the beast when you're a nationwide company, right? So hearing wet spots here, dry spots here, that doesn't really bother me or concern me too much. Obviously, you start talking about widespread flooding that you heard about in the Delta and Kentucky, Tennessee, that area. That is concerning for more than one reason. But bigger trends, you're obviously, it's weather is weather, right? So you're watching for major issues when it comes to weather. But I also look at prices. I mean, prices look decent for some commodities now, but what's next when it comes to the geopolitical things? In the last 2 years, we've had pretty significant price declines. So watching for that again to see if it looks like we may head that direction. But just those macro movements that have bigger impacts with a broader stroke of the brush, basically, that's what I'm trying to watch for. And then obviously, from my perspective and my position, making sure that we're staffed to handle any kind of issue, if it is widespread, growth, or if it's just widespread, impacts.
So let's stay on that for a second, because one of the things that, and thanks to our agents and customers and our claims team, sales team, everybody coming together, we've been fortunate and have experienced some significant growth over the last few years. Can you talk about from the claims seat, because obviously that's boots on the ground. That's our touch point with the end customer, with the farmers that we serve. Can you talk a little bit about how we plan and we staff for that growth?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, our sales team, with the partnerships that they've created with the agency staff, they had a banger year, which is really exciting, and you get pumped about that. And then that's also what keeps me awake at night, right? Because I'm sitting there saying that we had that kind of growth. Okay, we got to make sure we take care of it. We have a reputation to uphold. And so the first thing it starts with is I work with our RCM team, which you heard from. They work with their supervisor staff. We come up with a model or a plan. We already have our structure or our staffing model, and we utilize that to help develop a staffing plan of what we're going to need for people. And we've been very, very busy enough that our HR department's like, are you going to pump the brakes? Because this is getting ridiculous.
Right.
These onboarding groups are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because we've been very busy. And I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I know if we're not past it, we're knocking on the door of increasing our staff by over 10%, which is pretty significant growth in a matter of a few months for staffing.
Oh, yeah.
So we're very active when it comes to trying to be not just on par, but ahead of it, right? And making sure that we have the people there to take care of the business. And we're very fortunate that a lot of the people that we've hired this last season, last few months, there's a high percentage of them that are experienced adjusters, which is nice. We've had more experienced adjusters interested in working for us than we probably have ever, which is just a testament to how we do our jobs and the people we have that are leading our teams and the gentleman that you heard from earlier.
Yeah, right. No, I'm glad you said that, because that was my follow-up question is, if we've put on a lot of adjusters, sometimes the concern is experience, right? But we've got some good folks.
And then you also have, you can kind of take care of the workload with two ways, right? You have your staff and you get them up to speed and trained, but then the other side of it's technologies of what can you do to be more efficient, right? And so a lot of that's systems. We do a lot of system enhancements. We're in the process of building another new system just to always stay ahead of the curve and add functionality that allows our people to be better with their time, right? We count on them for a lot of things, and it shouldn't be hard for them to do their job. So we're doing everything we can to make it easier for them to do their job. And you combine that with things, initiatives like precision and things like that significantly save time on claims that come through that way. That's definitely something we try to leverage and promote so that we can continue to provide the service that we're known for.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously it's a lot, but it takes a lot to make sure that we're effective as we grow, as we have over the past few years. So with that kind of on the front end, the plan to service the business, how do you measure success on the back end to make sure that we're meeting our promises?
Yeah, so we've got a couple different methods. I mean, one, we have our scorecards for our adjusters. So there's metrics that we try to encourage them to hit that we believe tie to our core values, and it also ties to what we believe makes us successful. One of those elements is going to be a customer satisfaction rating, which we have our survey. So I don't want to say every claim, but basically every claim that gets paid has a survey sent unless they've received a survey in the last 30 days. So if you have several counties and we've paid one county, you're not going to get another survey. But we send surveys out to our insureds after they've had a claim and experienced that level of service from our staff. And that is another way we keep our finger on the pulse of, are we doing what we say we're going to do? Are we hitting on what we feel adds value to the claim process and the claim experience for an insured and an agent. And those results have been very good. I mean, we've had high results in I think our current net promoter score is around 91 and change. So it's over 91%, which is
Fantastic. By the way. Yes.
But what I find more interesting than that number is that our response rate on our survey is over 30%. And that's
amazing.
not with I mean, that's with people filling it out with a pen most of the time and sending it in an envelope, right? We have the ability to do it, to have our insureds do it online, but the vast majority still send it in an envelope and mail it back to us. And to get a 30% response rate is almost unheard of.
30% response rate with that level of net promoter score is pretty darn good.
Usually when you have that many people want to talk to you, they're not happy about something.
It's a not happy thing,
but the vast majority of people are taking the time out of their day to send us feedback that tells us that we're doing well. And that's always nice to see. So
fantastic. I love that right there. So anything else on your mind kind of from a national perspective? Because I really like kind of closing up on that, because that's a really high note to kind of end the conversation on. But I really want to see if there's anything else that's kind of on your mind.
I think that's the big thing, is watching price and watching weather, right? I mean, it's agriculture. Those are the things we're at. There's the other things that, you start talking about Farm Bill and some policy and different person running RMA. Those things are things to get. Sometimes I get excited about some of those changes. Other times maybe not so much. But those are things we watch. But to truly impact this claim cycle, it's weather and price. And so we're watching those, making sure that if we do have something pop up regionally, that we're quick enough to respond. Right. Our model is we have staff there. We have a very good staff at hand. But if things get real bad, then we can always bring in help from other places. So being able to watch your trend, watch your claim count, and be able to react soon and not get behind the 8 ball on that is a way we can continue to provide that service. And then from I would say, just as a general statement, anytime I get the chance to plug ACH, I do.
Yeah.
Because not to rip on our mail system, but it seems to be harder and harder to get things mailed to the right place timely.
And just for listeners, ACH is what?
Well,
you don't have to, not the acronym,
the actual acronym.
Direct
so
deposit,
basically, it's direct deposit. So we can wire you the money to your bank of choosing. And we have solutions. It used to be the biggest roadblock we'd have there is if you had an assignment of indemnity where the bank was going to be, their name was going to be on the check that was sent to you, we had to send you a check. Well, now we have forms that the bank can sign saying, I'm good with it. Go ahead and wire the money. So, I mean, we can pay a claim on a Tuesday and you have your money on a Wednesday. So it's a heck of a lot better option than mailing a check, which takes 3 to 5 days on a good experience,
right?
And shows up at the right spot, not
or forever on a bad experience,
or
right.
or you don't lose it or forget it on your
mail.
dashboard, So it just makes it more efficient for everybody and more secure nowadays, right? I mean, you hear about people losing stuff out of their mailbox. It's already in your when you wake up the next day, basically it's sitting there waiting for you. So you can sign up for that in advance. You don't have to wait to have a claim. You can set it up and it'll stay in place until you take it off. If you have an update in banking information, you can send that to us. Again, we have a form that RMA had a form that they created. The Risk Management Agency had a form they created that allow you to deal with the AOI, assignment of indemnity situation, for 1 year. For one crop. And then they realized how inefficient that was. And they've already came back and said, well, here's a new form that we're going to come out that's good for all the crops, all the years, continual. And so we're like, we already have that form. So we were already ahead of the game on that for insurers to give us that ability to send them their money faster. So that's always one that I look at. It just, at the end of the day, most people are going to be happier with that experience than waiting for a check. So we always push for that. Outside of that, it's just, I would say the advice. I know you've asked some of the other RCMs what their advice is, and I think they really hit it pretty well. I mean, it's communication. It's huge, right? You have an agent that works for you, and that we work for that agent and we work for you as well to try to do a good job. But if you don't know what your options are, or if you're not sure what next steps to take or you may have a loss, those types of things, whether it's a replant, prevent plant, or even getting into the fall when it doesn't have to be fall, right? But when you get to harvest season for whatever crop that you're growing, it's keep your agent in the loop, right? That's what they're there for. They want to help you. They want to make sure we don't miss any dates to get claims turned in. And me, in my position from claims, it is a lot easier for me to cut a check and work a claim than it is to deny it and say, no, you missed the date. Like, I don't want to be the guy that says you missed the date, right?
Right.
So we're always in a better situation or a better spot if we can get a timely notice of loss, and the adjuster can be involved from the get-go, and we can work that claim cleanly and then make sure that our producers are getting those indemnities that they deserve. So
perfect. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. That's been a lot of information. It's been great. It's great getting the national perspective and then hearing from the different regions of the country. So I think universally the advice that we're hearing out of the claims team is to stay in communication with your agent. If you're a farmer, if you're an agent, stay in communication with your farmer. If there's something that's potentially arising, make sure you stay on top of it and do that. So I think that's great advice and guidance for us to kind of end the this episode of FMH InsureCast on. And I just want to officially end by thanking Zach, thanking all the RCMs for the time that they're able to dedicate to the InsureCast and for everything they do in the field, because they're our face in the field. Their service is really what wins the day. So thanks to you and your team. And I don't want to forget all of the agents and all of the claim staff that are out there working claims every day. Those folks are standing at the ready to make sure our farmer customers are taken care of when they need us most. So really appreciate that. And also appreciate the listeners and viewers very much. I know I learned a lot today. Hopefully you all did too. And I just want to make a plug to subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts or YouTube to FMH InsureCast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to FMH InsureCast. We appreciate you joining us today and would like to hear from you. If you have questions about today's topic or an idea to share for an upcoming podcast, you can contact us at fmhpodcast@fmh.com. Thanks for listening. This podcast is intended for information purposes only. See policy provisions, terms, and conditions for details. Products underwritten by Farmers Mutual Hail Insurance Company of Iowa and its affiliates, West Des Moines, Iowa. Farmers Mutual Hail is an equal opportunity provider.